Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. As more flights arrive in Canada from Afghanistan, the world reacts to the Taliban taking over the war-torn country. More Alberta firefighters are heading to British Columbia to help battle the wildfires. The newest contingent is from Sterling. And as students head back to school in the fall, officials at Alberta's post-secondary institutions have spoken out regarding vaccine policies. We have the details.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. 2 more flights from Afghanistan have arrived in Canada. The planes carry diplomats and special forces troops and an unknown number of refugees fleeing the Taliban. The flights came after order was restored at the Kabul airport following a chaotic 2 days that saw thousands of desperate Afghans rushing out of the tarmac as the Taliban took control of the city and the country. Officials say there are still at least 2,000 more people in Afghanistan waiting to be evacuated. Calgary Conservative candidate Michelle Rempel-Garner says many of her constituents are angry that Liberal leader Justin Trudeau would call an election, especially after what recently transpired in Afghanistan.
Conservatives have been contacted by constituents across the country, Afghan veterans, and at least one NGO with family members and staff in Afghanistan attempting to flee the country. Despite repeated attempts to communicate with the Liberal government on what's been done to save the lives of these individuals, they have yet to respond. The lives of these Afghans are in danger and they need immediate response. The Liberal announcement on Friday that they would bring 20,000 Afghans to Canada was misleading. There were reports within hours of this announcement that the embassy had shut down all communications. The fact that they made this announcement without telling Canadians or Afghans how they would follow through on this promise while the Taliban were on the doorstep of the capital of Afghanistan is shameful. Today, while constituency offices are attempting to contact the Immigration and Global Affairs Minister's staff, they have failed to respond. This is the consequence of Justin Trudeau calling an election while Afghanistan is in the process of being taken over by the Taliban.
U.S. President Joe Biden says he stands by his decision to withdraw troops from Afghanistan. He does acknowledge, however, that the Afghan government's collapse was a lot quicker than anticipated.
When I came into office, I inherited a deal that President Trump negotiated with the Taliban. Under his agreement, U.S. forces would be out of Afghanistan by May 1, 2021, just a little over 3 months after I took office. The choice I had to make as your president was either to follow through on that agreement or be prepared to go back to fighting the Taliban in the middle of the spring fighting season. I stand squarely behind my decision. After 20 years, I've learned the hard way that there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces.
The U.S. State Department is advising American citizens in Kabul to take shelter and to stay away from the airport in the capital until further notice.
The safety and security of U.S. government employees and U.S. citizens overseas is our top priority. All remaining U.S. direct hire embassy personnel, including the ambassador, have relocated to Hamid Karzai International Airport, where they are secure. The Department of Defense is working to restore a safe and secure environment so that military and commercial flights can resume. Now, of course, the situation is evolving quickly, and we will communicate information to U.S. citizens as rapidly as possible. In the meantime, we are asking U.S. citizens to shelter and not to travel to the airport until they hear otherwise from the Department of State. We are working on a couple different fronts. First and foremost, to seek to preserve calm in Kabul, to maintain a semblance of security, and very importantly, to underscore that any effort, any attempt to target, to threaten, to intimidate our personnel or our operations would be met with a swift and decisive response.
A U.S. veteran with 4 Afghan deployments said he was surprised by how quickly the Taliban took over the country just 2 weeks before the Americans were set to complete its troop withdrawal following a costly 20-year war.
So yeah, the Taliban has taken over the country. They'll establish their own government. I'm sure they will invite al-Qaeda affiliates back into Afghanistan to train, and that will lead to attacks on foreign countries in the United States and Europe. So then that draws the question: well, what do we do next? Because if they do that, I feel like it's only a matter of time until we go back in and do the same thing. Although hopefully we have more limited objectives. The Afghan president took off as soon as he was able, and he used the excuse that that would provide an opportunity to have an interim government through some sort of negotiation. But of course, there's no incentive for the Taliban to negotiate. They've already won. With regard to the military that we trained, there are certain units that are very competent, but without a federal government to support, without pay, and without the intelligence capability and close air support that we were able to bring as the United States, it's very hard to conduct those missions or expect those guys to conduct the same types of missions without that types of support. And from what I understand, I think a lot of the pay has been cut off. So there's no way for these guys to get paid. So now I believe that they're just heading back, like I said, to their home villages and protecting their families as best they can.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is urging the world to not abandon the people of Afghanistan. The UN chief spoke to an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council.
We are receiving chilling reports of severe restrictions on human rights throughout the country. And I am particularly concerned by accounts of mounting human rights violations against the women and girls of Afghanistan who fear a return to the darkest days. Afghans are a proud people with a rich cultural heritage. They have known generations of war and hardship. They deserve our full support. The following days will be pivotal. The world is watching. We cannot and must not abandon the people of Afghanistan.
Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari says what will make the Taliban even more powerful in Afghanistan is how the terrorist group has freed thousands of prisoners from a former U.S. military base, prisoners who will now have revenge on their minds.
Al-Qaeda and the Taliban are extremely sophisticated. They are very well networked, they are very well organized, very well funded, and now they have the help of thousands more of their best guys, because those are the ones who were caught and in prison because they obviously carried out many attacks in the past. So it's not good news for anyone here.
Lisa will discuss what it will mean for us in the West with the Taliban now running the show in Afghanistan. That Q&A is coming up later in our broadcast. Firefighters in BC continue to battle 263 wildfires across the province, including 20 that pose a serious threat to public safety. The entire cities of Merritt and Armstrong, north of Vernon, remain on evacuation alert due to the fires. Armstrong is being threatened by the destructive White Rock Lake wildfire burning up in the western shoreline of Okanagan Lake. So far, it has damaged or destroyed at least 70 properties. 74 evacuation orders covered over 6,600 properties, while 119 evacuation alerts directed residents of more than 16,000 properties to be ready to leave on short notice. The Sterling Fire Department has sent 2 of its own to help battle the wildfires in BC. Lieutenant Sean Fawcett and firefighter Rick Rampton have been deployed to Kelowna to help assist staffing a structure protection unit. The team will be stationed in Kelowna to help protect homes and structures from the growing wildfires. CAO with the Village of Sterling, Scott Donsler, says all firefighters are trained for interior structure fires, structural protection, and wildland fires.
A structural protection group with trailers and things that are available for British Columbia reached out to us because we have trained members to be able to operate that equipment. So we had a couple of members that stepped up and said that they would head out to British Columbia with the equipment to operate the structural protection apparatus. This is an opportunity for them to, one, exercise the skills that they've developed, and also to provide some critical support to the residents of British Columbia and out in the Kelowna area where it's sorely needed. So we have a very strong professional fire service, and we're quite proud of the members and being able to step up and contribute like this.
The duo is expected to remain in BC for the next couple of weeks. Lethbridge police have charged 2 people in connection with a Monday stabbing on the city's west side. Police say the incident occurred in the 200 block of Mount Crandall Crescent West, where they located 2 people who were suffering from stab wounds. The 2 men, aged 31 and 32, were taken to hospital with serious injuries. The investigation revealed the incident involved a dispute between 2 people who knew each other. One of the injured males, 31-year-old Dexter Lewis Scout of Lethbridge, faces various charges, including housebreaking and committing aggravated assault. 35-year-old Ross Gary Scout also faces a wide range of charges, including housebreaking and aggravated assault. Close to $1 million worth of stolen trailers were recovered following an investigation by Alert in Medicine Hat. The 13 stolen holiday trailers, along with other vehicles including RVs and motorbikes, were recovered. 36-year-old Nathan Herter of Medicine Hat and 36-year-old Matthew Hillier of Hope, BC face a wide range of charges including theft over $5,000 and possession of stolen property. Police say the thefts date back as far as December of 2020 and spread across much of Western Canada. Canadians will go to the polls in just over a month, and people living in Lethbridge will have 3 names on the ballot, including Liberal Party candidate Devin Hargreaves. Hargreaves recently ran provincially but says he had a need to represent Lethbridge at the federal level. Hargreaves is also the founder of the petition leading to Bill C-6, which would see the banning of conversion therapy. Now, if elected, Hargreaves says he and the Liberal Party are focused on economic recovery.
Right now, of course, continuing the employment wage subsidy program is a big part of that. We are still coming out of a pandemic. And then, of course, focusing on recovery, which is where interest-free loans for small business come in, as well as, again, $10 a day childcare to get our families back in the workforce and to make a difference, particularly for women. I would, of course, be happy to continue to stand up for and fight for Bill C-6, which is the bill to ban conversion therapy. That started in Lethbridge. I was the one who was behind that. It was voted against by our own MP. So I'd like to see that be reintroduced and pass.
Hargreaves has already begun to door knock, meet with constituents, and is preparing to roll out lawn signs. Also on the ballot locally for the September 20th vote are Conservative candidate Rachel Harder and PPC candidate Kimmy Hoven. When it comes to instituting mandatory vaccinations, most of Alberta's post-secondary schools have said no. You can include the University of Lethbridge and Lethbridge College in that group. The University of Calgary, Mount Royal University, SAIT, NAIT, and the U of A will also not mandate the shot, but are strongly encouraging students and staff to get it. The school's decisions came as Alberta has seen an increase in COVID-19 cases. Over the past few days, over 1,400 cases have been identified. The active case count is now 5,354 in the province. The University of Lethbridge, along with the U of C and the U of A, have released updated back-to-school fall plans. Starting September 1st, all 3 schools are recommending students and faculty get vaccinated ahead of September. However, those who are not fully vaccinated or who would prefer not to disclose their vaccine status will need to complete a rapid screening test and receive a negative result before they enter any campus building. As well, masks will be need to worn when inside, unless you are in a private office or there's a minimum of 2 meters between each person. A full back-to-school plan is expected to be released in the coming weeks. It's the first day of classes for students and staff at 32 schools on the Calgary Board of Education's modified school year. Mask use is mandatory for both. The board decided that face coverings are required for all in-person learning due to the pandemic. No visitors or volunteers are allowed to the school sites. Band and sports-related activities will be allowed, as will field trips. Students on the traditional schedule will return to classes on September the 1st. A new study by Rentals.ca and the National Rent Report on Rents in Canada is out, and our city, Lethbridge, came in at number 28 on the list for average monthly rent in July. A 1-bedroom home was $991, while the average monthly rent for a 2-bedroom was $1,099. Calgary finished 22nd on the list of 35 cities, with an average price for 1-bedroom at $1,246 and was 24th for the average monthly rent for a 2-bedroom at $1,622. Edmonton finished 27th, coming in at $1,028 for a 1-bedroom and $1,241 for a 2-bedroom. Vancouver still leads the list with an average monthly rent of $2,185 for a 1-bedroom and $3,041 for a 2-bedroom. Toronto was next at $1,855 for a 1-bedroom and $2,606 for a 2-bedroom. Bikers Are Buddies is a nonprofit group based here in Lethbridge that creates awareness and respect for children and adults to empower each other when they face bullying. As Micah Quinn explains now, the group has been finding creative ways the past couple of years to help out in our city.
Bikers Are Buddies was started in 2019, and now the group has 12 members, with 4 more coming soon to join. Smash is the group's junior road captain, and he says the most satisfying part of the job is helping out children who are facing bullying.
Back when I was younger, throughout high school, junior high, I was bullied, and we never had the tools. And the teachers and parents didn't have the tools to help with the bullying. And now, with it being 20, 30 years later, we actually have literature and tools to help teach these kids to stand up and speak out.
The group will be hosting a free community give back barbecue on August 22nd, and they're asking residents to bring a non-perishable food item for the Lethbridge Food Bank.
There are activities, we have games, prizes, hamburgers, hot dogs, drinks, chips, and it's our way of saying thank you to the community for all that they've done for us in the last 2 years.
Rage is the president of Bikers or Buddies, and he says you have to ride to be a member, but they're always looking for volunteers.
The events, they get kind of busy, so, and you know, it's just nice to have as many people we can have helping out. And the more people we have in the group, the more we can help the community as well.
The two members say the pandemic was tough to navigate, but now that events are able to be held with no restrictions, it's set to become easy riding for the group. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
The beautiful area of Legacy Park is continuing its expansion in our city. The Legacy Park Pavilion is open for booking starting today. Robin Harper, the General Manager of Recreation and Culture for the City of Lethbridge, says groups and individuals are welcome to rent out the space.
You can have birthday parties here, you can have small weddings, you can have meetings, classes, small gatherings, multitude of types of events here. It does have a sink and a fridge for those events that require it. You know, if a group or an individual wants to, they can have liquor at this location as long as they have the proper licensing. It has some storage availability. There is a concession in the space as well near the front doors.
If you rent out the pavilion, you're also able to access 10 tables, 60 chairs, washrooms, and color-changing lights. The Western Hockey League says it is making COVID-19 vaccinations mandatory for all players and staff. It says officials must also be fully vaccinated at least 2 weeks before the start of the regular season on October the 1st. The league strongly recommends that players stay in billet homes in which all residents have been fully vaccinated. WHL Commissioner Rob Robinson says the health and safety of players and staff is their #1 priority. Christian organization Samaritan's Purse is continuing to respond to those in need following the devastating earthquake which rocked Haiti last weekend. The teams are now on the ground preparing relief supplies to transport to impacted areas on the island. More than 1,000 people died and more than 5,000 were injured from Saturday's 7.2 magnitude quake.
We're on the ground here in Haiti. We're excited to serve the people here that are suffering after the earthquake. We're providing shelter relief supplies, water treatment systems, and emergency medical supplies. And we're here not only to help with physical aid, but we're here to help with spiritual aid in the name of Jesus Christ.
I am Pierre Julian, the country director here in Haiti. I am so delighted to see the DC-8 landing here in Haiti. The needs are indeed very great. Samaritan Purse has been a great friend of the Haitian people. You were there with us during the earthquake in 2010. You were there with us in Canada. You were there with us during Hurricane Matthew. Now you're back helping in Jesus' name. We are very delighted. We are grateful. Thank you, Samaritan Purse, for what you are doing for the kingdom of God.
A severe drought in California is now threatening its $6 billion a year almond industry. It is an industry which produces 80% of the world's almonds, which are a water-intensive crop. The production decline could possibly lead to higher prices at the grocery store.
We're in the second year of this drought. It's really, really serious. And it's as serious, if not more so, than any drought that we've been in before. There's one orchard here that's drying up because they just didn't have the money to buy the water. And we're seeing this all over the valley. So we're going to see a slight reduction in the amount of almonds coming out of California, which the world's going to start to see less almonds.
We have about 600 acres of almonds on our farm. The orchards are being in deficit irrigation. That means that the trees are not getting the amount of water they should get. In addition, we've had to fallow land. Almost a third of my farm is fallow in order to keep our trees alive, to save the water from the fallow land for our trees.
The amount of water that's dedicated to almonds and the other permanent crops in California has grown astronomically. If we're conserving in the cities so that they can grow more almonds, it's simply not fair because it's not benefiting the majority of Californians. It's benefiting some farms and some farm workers. I think with the climate change, the drought, the heat waves we're having, something's going to change very quickly or we're going to literally see our state collapse.
Well, here in southwestern Alberta, we had some much needed rain today, and that trend will continue for the next couple of days. A complete look at the weather picture is coming up. This is what many in Kananaska's country dealt with today. Lots of snow in the mountains here in Alberta. As for our region, it was nice to see the rain once again in Lethbridge, watering our crops, our lawns and trees, and not to mention giving us better air quality. Tonight, expect more rain developing with a low near 9. Wednesday, a good chance of showers again with a high of 18. The rain should taper off somewhat on Thursday with a high of 21. Friday, more showers developing with the mercury dropping to 17. A nice weekend is shaping up so far. Expect sun mixed with cloud and a high of 20 degrees on Saturday. Mainly sunny and a high of 24 on Sunday. Monday, clouds mixed with sunshine again and a high of 22. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 26 degrees and an average low of 10. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 2001 at 36 degrees, and the record low was a chilly +2 in 1969. Sunrise was at 6:25, sunset at 8:46. Looking at Wednesday's national forecast now, expect sunshine at 22 degrees in Victoria, lots of sun and 1 degree warmer in Vancouver at 23. It should be partly cloudy and 22 in Edmonton. Sunshine and 18 is on tap for Calgary. Showers and 18 as well for Regina. Mostly cloudy and 21 degrees for Saskatoon. Winnipeg had a heat warning on Tuesday. Wednesday mainly sunny with a high of 32. Light showers and 28 degrees for Toronto. Rain and 29 for both Ottawa and Montreal. In Atlantic Canada, expect showers and 26 degrees for Fredericton, New Brunswick. Partly cloudy and 26 as well for Halifax, Nova Scotia. Increasing clouds and 25 for Charlottetown, PEI. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, it should be mainly sunny and 28 degrees on Wednesday. Highliner Foods says the recovery in the restaurant industry helped push its second quarter sales up more than 14% from a year ago. The Nova Scotia seafood producer says sales increased to $189.8 million. That was up from $165.8 million as COVID-19 restrictions loosened. It says its profit jumped to $8 million compared with $3.4 million a year earlier. On an adjusted basis, Highliner says diluted shares went from 14 to 30 cents over the past year. Sales of wholesale goods in Canada were up 2.6% in the second quarter for their fourth straight quarterly increase. Stats Canada says the gain came even though sales in June were down 0.8% from the previous month to $71.5 billion. That was only the third decline since May of last year and ended 3 consecutive monthly increases. The federal agency says the drops came as the building material and supply sectors saw a sharp decline in June. Machinery, equipment, and supply subsectors were also down. Walmart is raising its outlook for the year as millions of North Americans return to shopping for back-to-school supplies during its second quarter. Walmart reported earnings of $4.27 billion US, or $1.52 per diluted share during the 3-month period ending July 31st. That is 5 cents per share higher than what Wall Street was expecting. T-Mobile says it is investigating a leak of its data after someone on an online forum offered to sell the personal information of cell phone users. The company says it has confirmed there was unauthorized access to some T-Mobile data, but is still determining who was most affected. T-Mobile says it is confident it has closed the entry point used to gain access. Over the weekend, Vice's motherboard reported someone was offering to sell the personal information of more than 100 million people. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 119 points on the day to finish at 20,364. The Dow was down 282 points to 35,343. The S&P 500 was down 31 points to 4448, and the Nasdaq was down 137 on the day to 14,656. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 70 cents to 66.59 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 11 cents to 3.84 US. Gold was up 10 cents to 17.8629 US an ounce, and silver was even at 23.66 US an ounce. Wheat is at $419 per metric ton. Barley's also at $419. Canola's at $919, and corn is at $448 per metric ton. Live cattle were down 23 cents to 123.30. Feeder cattle were down 63 cents to 156.58, and lean hogs were down $1.10 to 87.90. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 79.21 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, firefighters in BC continue to battle 263 wildfires across the province, including 20 that pose a serious threat to public safety. The entire cities of Merritt and Armstrong, north of Vernon, remain on evacuation alert due to the fires. Armstrong is being threatened by the destructive White Rock Lake fire burning up in the western shoreline of Okanagan Lake. So far, it has damaged or destroyed at least 70 properties. The village of Sterling in southwestern Alberta is sending a couple of firefighters to BC to help battle the blazes. The Taliban in Afghanistan is beefing up its forces since it freed thousands of prisoners who were being held captive at a former U.S. military base. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari will explain what that will mean for us here in the West. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Fort Whoop Up and New West Theatre are partnering up to provide a fun and exciting dinner theater experience called Trader Tales, taking place Friday, August 20th from 6 to 9 p.m. Take a private tour of the fort, enjoy a relaxing wagon ride, and delicious dinner. The evening culminates with an intimate performance featuring New West Theatre actors. Cost is $45 per person. For tickets, visit fort.galtmuseum.com. Discover how Lethbridge has played an important military role in the preservation of world peace and security by visiting the Lethbridge Military Museum at the Vimy Ridge Armory at the Lethbridge Airport. The museum is open to the public each Wednesday from noon to 4 p.m. Special arrangements for other days and times can be made by calling 403-892-6531. Admission is free, but donations are gratefully accepted. For information, go to lethbridgemilitarymuseum.org. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
The Taliban has entered Kabul and the president of Afghanistan has fled the country. To talk about what's transpiring in Afghanistan is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, things must be pretty bad if the president has fled the country.
Right. And things went bad very, very quickly. Hal, you and I have been talking about the deterioration of that country for a long time now, particularly as the U.S. announced that they would be withdrawing their troops, obviously giving a green light to the Taliban to start taking over the country, and they did. And as you know, the predictions were that it's going to take a few months before they do, but it only took a few days. And the president, the Afghan military, the people, they just don't stand a chance against this force of the Taliban. They have had years of influence, and they have funding, and they have weapons, and they're just able to force their way through their terrorizing and forceful ways to push their way, and they're in the palace as we speak.
That's just amazing. You know, the Taliban has taken over so much of Afghanistan, like you said, in such a short period of time. In fact, they even declared that the war is over, Lisa.
Yeah, for them, it was so quick. There you can see them celebrating and dancing. And of course, the other side of this that you're not seeing in the mainstream media is the people of Afghanistan. You know, what will this mean for the people? And, you know, how will life be different than it has been? It's never been a picnic for the people of Afghanistan, obviously. It's always been a country that has had, you know, some sort of insurgency or some, you know, imperialistic power, you know, trying to get in there and influence them. So they haven't had an easy time, but it's never been this bad. This is a line in the sand to say the future of Afghanistan will be completely different. The Taliban, a terror organization, will be ruling an actual country. It's not good news for the Afghan people. It's not good news for the region. It's not good news for the free world.
Yeah, let's talk about what's happening or what will happen with the Afghan women and children. There are reports right now that a lot of Afghan women are being pushed out of the banking industry. Kids will not be allowed to go back to school. What's going to happen with the women and children of Afghanistan?
Yeah, at the very, very least, women will be pushed out of their jobs. You won't see the female reporters like you're seeing on the streets now. I saw on the social media, they're showing two images, like a woman with her hair showing on one day, and the next day, over the weekend, you saw her with a complete Islamic headscarf. I will add a third picture that we're going to see in the near future where there are no women reporters. There are no women who can, you know, roam the streets and work in Afghanistan as freely as they have been able to. At the very least, the women will lose their jobs, not be able to go to school, will not have equal rights. At the very worst, they'll be sold into sex slavery. They'll be married off at a very, very young age, 12, 13, 14, to the Taliban fighters. They will be generally mutilated, as they often are in Sharia law. And of course, in the culture of honor killings, they would be killed if they had boyfriends, if they had if they had sexual relations before marriage, if they were caught with a male before being married, not being able to go out without an escort. These are things that we've seen in societies where Sharia law is implemented, and there's no doubt that the Taliban will do the same, if not worse.
Now, the U.S. State Department, Lisa, says thousands more troops are on their way to the main airport in Kabul to help with more evacuations. And in fact, American embassy personnel are in Kabul at the airport right now.
Yeah, this was a huge, huge just error. I mean, there's so many layers to this, Hal. And if we just start with what happened at the airport, the Americans weren't able to get out before the Taliban got into the capital. And for that reason, there was this rush to say, at least let's evacuate the Americans to the airport, keep them safe there. But then there were reports that they weren't even safe there. There were gunshots heard. They were ordered to stay in place. Obviously the Pentagon very quickly approved that more troops would be sent in to only help and assist with the evacuation. Look, this is awful planning. This was just out of control, just a preview of things to come. But obviously we were very focused on getting the personnel out of there. They are for sure targets for the Taliban, that was our priority for a long time. Now our priority will probably shift to the people of Afghanistan and what this will mean for them. Hopefully we can I think there's 60 countries or so, including the United States, that wanted to get their personnel out. So it's not just the United States.
Yeah, I mean, that joint statement by 60 countries saying Afghans and international citizens who wish to leave the country should be allowed to do so, with airports and border crossings remaining open. Lisa, the international community calls for safe and orderly departure of foreign nationals and Afghans, but will that actually happen? Will the Taliban allow that to happen?
Right, that's the question, and that's exactly what we were up against, this deadline of getting these people out. And again, these being very high-risk individuals who are doing, a lot of the fighting against the Taliban, if not in the military sense, in the sense of being, American personnel there, or Canadian personnel there, or European personnel there. That list of nations is very long because there are a lot of different countries that are invested in trying to at least curb the influence of the Taliban and help in the nation-building aspect of Afghanistan. So, our hearts go out to all these individuals and all the young people who really lost their lives in the last 20 years to make Afghanistan a better place, and to see the ending unfold the way that it is. It's just really a shame.
Various news outlets are reporting that the Taliban has freed thousands of prisoners from a former U.S. base. That means that the Taliban's going to be that much stronger?
Exactly. These are jihadis, right? So when you think about thousands of them, not just from the Taliban, these are Al-Qaeda members. Remember, these are one and the same. These are the same people that launched the 9/11 attacks on the United States. So what will they be up to now? And if you want to juxtapose groups like the Taliban and Al-Qaeda to a group like ISIS, these are masterminds of terror. They will retreat. They will go back into their caves and plan and plan and plan and plan, and God forbid, plan something very large scale. It's not like ISIS where they, encourage you to ram your car into one individual, and that's okay because that's enough of a deed to consider someone a martyr for killing one person. It's like your do-it-yourself jihadi organization, whereas Al-Qaeda and the Taliban are extremely sophisticated. They are very well networked. They are very well organized, very well funded. And now they have the help of thousands more of their best guys, because those are the ones who were caught and in prison because they obviously carried out many attacks in the past. So it's not good news for anyone here.
Now, many critics would argue that the surge of the Taliban in Afghanistan has exposed the failure of the U.S. government to build a solid Afghan army. I mean, what have they been doing the last 20 years?
That's exactly right. And I think, Hal, the question here is, what was the goal when the United States and allies went into Afghanistan in the aftermath of 9/11? on 9/12, when we decided to invade Afghanistan and subsequently did so, the idea was to get rid of the influence of the Taliban and Al Qaeda for launching this type of attack on the United States. And they did diminish the influence of the Taliban. At that point, the mission went awry. The mission should have been to help the people on the ground, the Afghan people themselves, to maintain their country, to build their country, to see a future for their country. The point is that this is not a military fight that was meant to be won. This is an ideological fight that cannot be won based on US military presence there. So when people are arguing today, whose fault was this, President Biden or President Trump? The point is that there could have been an exit with a better strategy. We're not saying that we should have been in Afghanistan to begin with, we should have stayed for 20 years, or we should have stayed 20 years more. The question is, what were we doing there, and why did we take our eyes off of the mission at hand, which is, again, to diminish this ideological threat, which is the Taliban and Al Qaeda?
So let me ask you something. Some of the military personnel you've reached out to, some of the higher ups within the Biden administration, what are their thoughts right now? What's transpiring in Afghanistan? They're thinking to themselves, was all of this for nothing? For the last 20 years, all of the training that we did with the Afghan fighters to fight the Taliban? What's their mindset right now?
Yeah, it's very sad. It's very sad for people who've been on the ground in Afghanistan. I know a few of my sources and a couple of friends actually who served in Afghanistan are feeling very defeated today, and they have been for a very long time. Most of them were for pulling out, for withdrawing, because they believed what you and I have always talked about, Hal, is that we are not seeing the end results that we'd like, and we're losing human treasure in the process. So let's retreat, let's withdraw and decide what would we want for the future of Afghanistan, and work that way. And that's fine. It's just that the way that this withdrawal occurred really put the entire country not only in this frenzy and this chaos that just keeps getting worse. It's that we also surrendered and gave up everything that we fought for. All the building of the Afghan people, the weapons that we left there, the human treasure that we lost there, was it for nothing? It's sad to think that we weren't able to withdraw in a way that would allow the Afghan people to at least preserve the capital, the palace, the presidency, the embassies there, and to diminish the threat of the Taliban and other terror groups there.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have remained silent so far and are appearing to be avoiding some cameras since the Taliban takeover.
Yeah, the question has been, where are they, right? So President Biden was on vacation all weekend. He emerged today for a very short press conference in which he only blamed everyone from Trump to the Afghan people, to the Afghan military, to the Afghan president. He basically was calling them cowards for not standing up against the Taliban. Look, believe me, nobody wants to cower to the enemy. But when they believe that they don't have a chance against the enemy, that's when they run away. That's when they flee the palace. That's when they flee the country. And I don't know if you got a chance, Hal, to see any of the footage of these poor Afghan people running onto the tarmac, holding on to a plane. I mean, it's suicidal, right? What they're doing, just to see how desperate they are. They want to get out. They want to save their lives and their families' lives. And it's such a raw situation to watch. And then to see the president, absent, missing in action, and it wasn't just the president, it was the vice president, it was his press secretary. People want answers. People want to know what happened, why it happened this way. And all you get on social media is the blame game of, this was Trump's idea to withdraw. No, this was Biden's idea to withdraw. Well, we withdrew, but we withdrew in a way that was damaging across the board, from the Americans who've been there and served there, to the families who lost loved ones there, to the Afghan people, to the women and children. And of course, the region as a whole will suffer tremendously because of this.
Lisa, let's talk about the risk of more terrorism. America's top general says many regions across North America could now face a rise in terrorist threats from the Taliban running Afghanistan.
Absolutely. I mean, look, they have. Remember when we were so upset about ISIS having headquarters in Raqqa, Syria, and in Iraq, and we were so concerned about these two cities being run by ISIS, which was, a force of maybe 30 to 50,000 jihadi fighters. Now you have a terror organization who has not been able to be curbed, who is much better funded, much better, much more organized, and now running an entire country. They will have a military. They will have, they're going to have government. They will have Sharia law. They will have land and territory to expand. And they were going to have a lot more fighters than ISIS did. So just to put that into perspective and think about what they had at their disposal when they launched the 9/11 attacks. Well, they're going to have much more, exponentially more at their disposal now. So it's a scary thought. You think about, again, those Taliban and Al Qaeda prisoners. They're coming out, not only coming out of prison from a U.S. base, they're coming out with a vengeance against the United States. So, this is scary stuff. This is serious stuff. And this is a huge foreign policy fail.
Speaking of scary stuff, Lisa, let's talk about what took place in Haiti with a devastating earthquake killing close to 1,300 and injuring more than 5,000 people. Now, many people are wondering why the Dominican Republic, which is on the same island as Haiti, never sees the same kind of devastation when an earthquake strikes.
Yes, when you hear about Haiti and the earthquakes, you're like deja vu. Again, these poor people, they can't catch a break. It just seems like we just had an earthquake in Haiti where we had, groups of rescue workers from around the world responding and trying to help them out there. And it looks like they haven't been able to help themselves with regard to infrastructure, or at least, firming up some of these, very, very precarious, architectural situations there for themselves, because the death toll is extremely high. It's continuing to climb. And again, they're sending help from around the world. Obviously, our hearts are with the people of Haiti. We hope that we don't see that number go up too dramatically. And we hope we don't see this again very, very soon.
Amen to that. Here's an interesting story as well. Israeli researchers say llama nanobodies could help stop the COVID-19 virus. Tell me more.
Yeah, this is a crazy story, but leave it to the Israelis to come up with something very unique and innovative when it comes to COVID. And my question when I saw this headline is, how did they figure this out, right? Did they try all the animals? I mean, what drew them to the llamas? But it turns out that the llama antibodies can be used in conjunction with other antibodies to create an antibody cocktail that is given to a lot of people within the first few days of contracting COVID in order to fight the disease. I mean, we don't have enough data on how widespread this is, or how well they can use this on patients, but obviously this is something that I'm sure they're going to have their eyes on to see how far they can take this. It's an easy fix if it works. I mean, wonderful.
And how can you tell if somebody's actually taking the llama antibody? Maybe they're slobbering a little bit more, they're getting more of a furry back? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Thank you, Lisa.
My pleasure.
The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted all of us, from our health to job losses. It's also impacted many of our homeless population. To talk about some of the challenges of our homeless, the working poor, and those with serious addictions is Ken Kissick. He's the co-founder of Streets Alive Mission here in Lethbridge. Ken, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Can you share a little bit about how the street population has responded to the pandemic and how they fared so far here in our city?
The pandemic has been hard on our street population, not so much from the point of view of the actual disease of COVID. A lot of them have managed to get through that without too much difficulty, but it's the closing of a lot of services and things that they were used to accessing, the library, the provincial building. And it created a real problem in them being able to get into certain places, or through the winter, a lot of stores and places were closed, so it was cold. Here through the heat wave, now that we're just opening, it was difficulty to find places for them to be able to get in. All their normal things were lost.
Ken, have you noticed an increase in the homeless population, or maybe in the number of addictions because of the pandemic, with people losing their jobs?
The other thing that we certainly have noticed is in the area of addictions. The drug use, the number of cases that we deal with in terms of overdoses has certainly gone up. Now there was a kind of a combination of the fact that the one site, the supervised consumption site, was shut down, which created some problems. But the other has been the lack of actually the pure drugs, because the borders closed. There's been a lot of dirty drugs that have shown up, and it's created a problem. We have seen haven't seen that much of an increase in the homeless population because of job loss, but there's always the transient population, and our homeless population is becoming more significant as the city itself grows. One of the upsides that's been here because of COVID is the Blood Tribe Band has done an excellent job of really stepping up, looking to help their people. And they opened 2 shelters out on the reserve through the winter months. They have a much better addictions and healthcare system, so we're trying to move people to them. But we still have a population of people here in the community that are struggling with addictions and drugs, alcohol, that create the problems that put them on the street.
Ken, does your ministry work with the Sage Clan as well? I know they're out helping a lot of the homeless, with water bottles and such. Do you work with that organization as well?
Yeah, actually, one of the greatest things that happened through COVID was the creation originally of the City of Lethbridge COVID response group. We used a communication item called Slack, and we created this group. Streets Alive was asked by the city to lead the addictions and recovery pod and the outreach and basic needs pods. But what has happened is that is now called Lethbridge Helping Organizations, and we have really banded together. So as an example, going into the summer, we knew we were going to need water. The 2 food banks led that up and reached out. Instead of a bunch of us kind of reaching out, we have close to 40,000 bottles of water available. And so organizations like the Sage Clan, the helping agencies, My City Care that has their outreach to the prostitutes, everybody was able to access that water. It's been great. This is the first year that we've actually been proactive rather than reactive. And yes, we work with the Sage Clan. We're working with the group that is transporting people out to the reserve. Any way we can help that population, we're working with groups.
Now, can you give us an update on the Segway home? I know it was a little controversial when it was set up on the city's south side, but it seems to be making a big difference in the lives of women who are in need of a safe place.
Actually, the Segway home has been open since December 3rd. It's been a bit of a learning curve because we were moving from managing 4 women to now up to as many as 17. Currently have 9. But yes, it's making a huge difference in the ability for us to be able to help women in recovery. As well, our men's program has grown. We've acquired another housing unit that houses 16 men in our stage 2 recovery. And so both our men's and women's recovery program are in growth mode right now.
So Ken, talk to me a little bit more about the Exodus Men's Life Recovery Program. Really explain the impact it's having on men in our region here.
Well, so again, one of the things that Streets Alive has been involved in for almost 30 years is helping people recover from addictions. And we've been doing men's programming for 22 years, and we've been doing women's for 10. And we have been enhancing these programs over the last few years. In fact, we are currently actually developing, in the last stages of developing our what we call our addictions recovery psychology portion of that, so that we can actually get accredited, not so much as a treatment center, but as an in-depth recovery center for both the men and the women. We've been excited about our men. We currently have the ability to have 35 men in our program. We currently have about 21. We just graduated our 8th man into who has spent 1 year sobriety, and so that's very exciting for us. We've probably had well over 40 90-day celebrations of guys that have got through 90 days, and so this makes a big difference for a lot of the men in recovery, as well as the women. Our whole purpose is to help them recover, to grow, and to be able to come back into a productive lifestyle. We are faith-based, so a lot of our programming and direction has the biblical worldview edge to it. That people can enter. Faith is not an issue for entry. Most of them, however, when they leave, are people of faith. Because without Christ, we are unable to really totally recover. And it's been really exciting to watch men and women, when they let Christ in, actually move forward in huge leaps. But it's a bit of a walk to get them to that place.
Ken, let's talk about some success stories of people who've maybe gone through your program, came to know Christ, and are now leading a clean, sober life.
Well, I can talk about, I won't use his real name. We'll call him Brian. Brian came to us about 15 months ago, full-blown meth addict. And this was his first time in any kind of treatment or recovery. He was very apprehensive about the faith base. He was not a believer. He didn't believe in God or anything else. About 2 months into the program, he recognized that he needed greater help. He received Christ, and his life dramatically turned. Currently, that Brian is working with us. He's employed by us. He is part of our men's recovery team. He is an assistant, what we call a client assistant. He has regained visitation rights to his daughters. He is establishing himself within the community, fully productive. And he's just one of 5 men that have gone through that, because one of the other things that we do with the men program and the women's program, when they reach a certain point, stage 3, we try and employ them for a period of time, 90-day cycles, which gives them both sobriety and an employment as they reach out. Because a lot of these guys have been out of work for years, and so they need that help.
That's tremendous. Let's talk about maybe help that you may need in the form of more volunteers. How are you doing in that aspect?
The volunteers that we need, because we've made some changes that have just happened in the community, but we still need volunteers with what we're calling our Repurposed Centers. So that's a new enterprise that also started during COVID, but it's basically sorting through clothing and furniture and stuff like that. We still need some volunteers to make sandwiches, because we are doing a certain amount of help for Alpha House and different places where we're providing sandwiches. And we could use some volunteers just in our pin bank downstairs at the mission. So there's lots of opportunity, and they can just go to our website, go to volunteers, and fill out the application.
Now, Ken, a big part of helping to turn people's lives around is providing a solid education. Tell me a bit more about the Ask Learning Center. What is it all about? So the Ask Learning Center has now been converted into what we call Genesis Connect for Women. Okay, and it is it's located. We have a separate location from the mission. It is a place where the women who are in the program come. That's where the classes are held. It's also where they do what we call DIY. So there's a creative element to do them. So they do arts. They do
glass work. They make certain things, journals and everything else. Those items are then put up for sale at the front end of that building. Now, of course, COVID shut us down for almost well over a year and a bit, but we're hoping to get reopened here by the end of summer, where people will be able to come in, purchase the items that have been made by the women, and then it just helps to run the program. On top of that, again, the men and women we've increased our addictions recovery scope. And so that there's classes that happen there. There's, things that go after what we call the trauma, led by, specialized people. We provide counseling assistance to them. But the Genesis Connect Center is strictly for women. The men's center is actually located in the Repurposed Center. So both have places where they gather, where they're able to come together and enjoy one another. That was one of the biggest pluses during COVID, because we were declared an emergency or an essential service and recovery was essential. The group limitations didn't apply to our groups. And so they were able to maintain a semblance of community. And so their mental health is a little bit better than others that we've seen.
Ken Kissick is the co-founder of Streets Alive Mission here in Lethbridge. Ken, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me, and may you have a great day.
You as well. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless. Thanks so much for watching.